What's up, channel? So today we are going to go over the best way to purchase freight, and this qualifies for purchasing freight in LTL, full truckload, or intermodal work. Basically anything that is involving a 53-40 foot trailer that is hooked to a semi-truck. So the first thing that we have to know is actually who we are buying the freight from, what type of company, and what can we anticipate from working with XYZ type of company. Now, in working with these different type of asset companies, we're leaving out brokers here, but the truck that actually shows up and completes the work, there are 5 different types of companies. Type of company number 1 is the one truck owner operator. So this is a guy with one truck. He's the guy driving the truck. His wife might be in there doing the invoices in the back end of the business, but this is a one-man operation. The person that you are calling and talking to is also the person who's going to execute the load. So within this category, I have a subcategory of fleet owner operator with a trailer and without a trailer. So we have power only and trailer carrying as the 2 different types of this category. Type of company number 2 that I have here is the 2 to 5 truck small fleet. This is a person who started off as an owner operator and has branched out, purchased a couple more trucks, and typically 8 times out of 10 has now put someone that they trust or they know, like a brother or a cousin or a friend, who is trustworthy enough to drive the truck into the truck. They're typically not hiring just anyone off the street or on Indeed. They typically know people in the industry and have hired them to drive these other trucks. The next category I have here is number 3. So this is the medium-sized trucking company. So this is any fleet with 10 to 35 trucks. I'm considering a medium-sized company. This is where the company needs to start hiring office staff. This type of company will typically have a billing person, a dispatch person, and once you're getting close to like 12, 13 trucks, typically you're gonna have to involve yourself in some kind of safety and operations person as well. This size fleet is where the expenses start getting a little bit higher. So instead of the last 2 fleets that we talked about that really only have the fixed cost of insurance and the truck and maybe their rent, this now has the additional fixed cost of these additional office staff members, potentially somewhere to have an office, different types of software to run what the office members need to do. So that is why it gets more expensive than these first 2 types that we had just spoken about. The next size fleet is what we are calling the large fleet, and this will be a fleet that consists of 35 to 100 trucks in their fleet. And I know it's a large range, but these fleets do operate typically the same whether you have 40 or 60 or 70 trucks. So basically at this point, you're going to have between 10 and probably 20 members of your office staff, depending on how you hire. You're going to have, definitely a full-blown safety person, full-blown, dispatchers. You're going to have overnight dispatchers, if you actually invest in the quality of the work. And this is where things start to get expensive. I would consider this, in terms of expense, pretty similar to the smaller fleet between the 10 to 35 trucks. Now, the final type of fleet, the number 5 that we're going to talk about here, is the mega fleet. I'm considering this any fleet with 100 to 1,000 plus trucks, because there's not too many fleets that are 100 to 150 trucks. Typically, they're getting purchased by larger trucking companies. So this is where you get into the range of working with companies that have 500 to 5,000 trucks. Now, what these companies have figured out is extreme scale, and what they're able to do is hire drivers extremely cheap right out of school, which is a bad thing in terms of quality as a service. And they also, if you're working with them, you're probably not talking to the actual decision maker who can actually make the work happen better versus working with any of the 4 other types of companies. And with respect to the price, you're actually going to get probably the best price out of any of the other options here besides the owner operator without a trailer on a per mile basis. This is because the drivers that they're hiring at like 45 cents per mile, whereas the fleet right below us is probably paying about 70 to 75 cents per mile. And what they do with the mega carriers is, because they're so big and typically self-insured, is that they can take far more risk when it comes to hiring drivers. And they also purchase trucks in the most intelligent way and have the best back end to actually run the staff. What you're getting is lower quality human beings that you're working with in terms of getting the work done. So if you're someone who kind of likes to have that control and be like, hey, what's going on? Why is this way? Then you're probably not going to want to work with a mega carrier. So fundamentally, these are the 5 different types of companies that you can actually buy freight from in terms of who is going to show up to your yard, to your your warehouse with the truck to actually move the freight. So I would say pros and cons. Let's start with pricing on each of these. The two most expensive ones are going to be the medium-sized fleet and the smaller fleet. So this is any fleet between 10 to 100 trucks. This is just because they don't have the massive scale that the mega carriers have, but they do have all of that additional fixed cost that the smaller to one-man shop does not have. The one-man shop does not need to hire drivers. They don't need to hire a safety person, blah, 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 or worry about maintenance nearly as much as some of these other guys because they're just the ones doing the work themselves. And they don't have to, well, they won't really even have the money to hire a safety person. You can't have 2 trucks and then hire 3 office staff. It would never work. So what they're able to do is undercut the price of the companies that are higher or more expensive than them, or the companies that are larger than them, because they have so much less overhead than the medium-sized companies. With expense, most expensive trucks are going to be the companies that come from about 10 to 100 trucks. The least expensive, I would consider the next tier, would be the megas, as well as the 2 to 5 truck companies. What the megas have figured out is, obviously, like I said before, how to scale all their office staff and be significantly less expensive than their competition directly below them. But what they do not have is as much of the service aspect. The 2 to 5 truck company has a little bit more of the service aspect, but there's definitely a ton of duds out there and it can be tough to work with them. The 2 to 5 truck company also, while being much less expensive than the 10 to 100 truck company, is most likely going to have older equipment as well. So when you're purchasing freight too, you probably want to ask what year the trucks are. Just try to see if they have a truck within the last 5 years or 3 years, and that will give you a closer approximation of what kind of service you're actually going to get from them. With the 2 to 5 truck company, I mean, these people they need the money very badly. They definitely want to do the work and they want to do it well, but have they invested properly in the equipment to actually execute the work? So the least expensive freight is going to come from the owner operator. So they're going to be slightly less expensive than using a mega carrier or a 2 to 5 truck company. And within these two tiers, the power only owner operator is the best, least expensive option to go with. The power only operator is basically their only power. So they're only bringing the semi truck to the table. So in terms of what they're bringing to the table, it's the least amount possible. If you want to get the lowest possible price on freight, the best way to do it is to figure out some way to handle the trailer situation so that you can yield power only owner operators to use the freight. And I'll probably make another video that goes into how to actually execute this, but the pros of it are that you're going to get an extremely dedicated person, most likely, after you go through some people. Probably 7 out of 10 are very, very good, I would say, from doing this. So you're going to get a very dedicated person who really needs to make money. They need to make their truck payment. That's way more incentivizing than making 45 cents a mile at your first job as a trucker. So they need to make their truck payment. They do not have a trailer. They have even less cost. So their only cost is the truck and parking it. So their cost is super low. And you're going to be able to work with them, replace them. It's not like you've one company doing 10 loads. You now have split up the economics and split up the leverage from, I'm not just totally levered by this one company. I actually have all these different carriers working and individuals. And if one of them doesn't work, then we can move on and get someone else. But the issue with this, the negatives are, dealing with all the individuals, organizing payment for all of them, and then organizing the information transfer, like dispatching them. From whatever end, like excluding brokers, there's more back-end work with hiring the power-only owner-operator, but it is something able to set up. It's something that we do. It is, in my opinion, from doing this, the best way to get a high-quality, high-leveraged person to do the freight, have leverage over actually having the work get done properly, and to get it at the best possible cost. I've run companies, I've run 40 truck companies, and it is just more expensive, much more office staff than actually just having these individuals do it. And I can make another video also on how to organize that for the least expensive cost as well. But yes, those are the 5 different types of companies that you can buy from. In part 2 here, we'll go over how to actually execute it.